Time for our greetings from the Garden State segment here on Jersey Magazine. And Mike Ham is with us again this morning. Mike, what do you got for us this week?
So this week we're talking about, we spent last week talking a lot about soccer. We're going back to music, fitting the WDHA vibe and everything. But we're talking about Natalie Farrell, who's an Asbury Park based musician. And she was actually the first time I was ever on Jersey Magazine. We talked about Jersey Fest, and she was actually the opening act of Jersey Fest, which was awesome. She did a great job. Her band was great. Just a good group of guys, and they did an awesome job.
I checked out some of her stuff that she has on YouTube, and I hear a little bit of Amy Winehouse in there. And I don't know if you're familiar with an Australian artist, Clary Brown. She had a song that was out. This is going back maybe 8, 10 years. It was actually featured in a Heineken commercial.
Oh, wow.
Probably know the song if you heard it, but
Yeah.
I'm getting vibes of that whole thing. And I know she's covered Amy.
Like a poppy blues kind of vibe. Actually, her guitar player, Matt Fernicola, who is part of Telegraph Hill Records, and he's the frontman of Foes of Fern. It's been in a bunch of Asbury Park based bands. They met at the what is it, the Salty Pickle or the something pickle in like Atlantic Highlands or something, and people know the pickle. I just don't remember the exact name of the pickle off the top of my head, but they just kind of started riffing on a song, and she was singing and he was playing guitar, and then they just started writing songs together. So it started bluesy, now it's gotten to more pop, and then she talked a little bit about kind of the next phase of her artistic career, and like what the next few songs are going to be in the episode. But yeah, she's got a great voice. She always, one of her go-to covers is that Alanis Morissette song, which is
It's either You Ought to Know or Hand in My
"You Ought to
Pocket.
Know." Thank
Yeah.
you.
I
I'm
watched that.
so prepared.
I know she's covered Amy Winehouse as well, and you can hear
Yeah.
some of the influence in there. A great voice, and as you mentioned, she has a great band behind her.
Yeah. Yeah. Her husband, actually, Lou Panico, is her bass player, Matt Fernicola on guitar, and then Josh Van Ness, who was awesome. Like he was the opening act drummer, and he showed up, and they weren't doing sound check till the very end. They basically, he came early, let all the other bands use his kit for the entire night at Jersey Fest, which was really cool. But just like, looking at like watching what they were doing and how they were playing, and what all the other bands that I know that these guys are involved in, it is a really impressive group that she has behind her. And with her in the front singing, it's a really cool group.
A little bit of what I picked up in listening to her music, Mike, is some elements of hip hop. Not a whole lot, but I got to thinking like hip hop and rock have been combined before. This is not
Yeah.
anything new, but her generation coming up, this is maybe the first generation that doesn't know a world without hip hop.
Right.
So they're
Yeah.
taking rock and hip hop and all of that and putting it together, much the way I have a number of friends who live in Nashville, and they're of my age, and they were among the first to grow up without a world, with a world that didn't have the Beatles in it,
Yeah.
because that's
Yeah.
where they started. So yeah, they're hearing Johnny Cash, and they're hearing Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs, and they're hearing Paul McCartney and John Lennon at the same time, and putting that all together. That seems to me what's happening with that
Yeah.
scene.
And as well as I do, but that Asbury Park scene overall, it's just rife with talent, right? And in a lot of different genres. I mean, you can go through and play, Asbury Park indie artists all day and get a lot of different types of music. And that is one of the things that I think is really interesting. You talk about Nashville and Asbury Park, like music centers of the world, and being around people like that and kind of getting inspired by different people, and stealing like an artist in some cases, but just kind of getting inspired, and using those influences to kind of generate almost like a new wave of music, or a new genre almost. Excuse me. And basically like combining those to make something that's really cool. So it's really cool to watch, and knowing more and more musicians in that area, and kind of knowing how they operate and work together and collaborate on different projects, or even just they're friends with, and they're just hanging out jamming, and then something all of a sudden comes organically from that, which is essentially, like I was saying before, is how I almost said Amy, but Natalie and Matt kind of got together and started playing that first song at the Pickle. Now they're doing some great things.
I have to remember that quote. People know the pickle.
Yeah, people know the Pickle, apparently.
When people talk about the sound of Asbury Park years ago, for so many, that meant Bruce Springsteen, Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes,
Yep.
John Eddie, that sort of thing. It seemed to have kind of a homogenous sound to it. Yet the reality was that Asbury Park was so many different things at the time. Bruce and Johnny, yeah, they got all the headlines, but there were
Sure.
so many other things that were going on. And I love what's happening in Asbury Park these days musically, because there were so many different styles of music and places to play down there.
Yeah. Then there's and that is one thing with Asbury Park kind of having its renaissance and this comeback tour basically, and getting to a point where some people are a little bit worried about washing out a lot of that history and the culture that comes with a place like that. But also I do think that a lot of businesses in the area are staying true to what made Asbury Park special at the very beginning. Like obviously you still have the Stone Pony, you have Wonder Bar, bands playing Convention Hall, but there's other places where they can play, and they you should start to see them form different bands, and like I mentioned Matt Fernicola, who's in multiple bands, the front man for a couple, and then playing guitar and a couple others, and just kind of getting those influences all mixed up, and always having a place to actually play live music, and like you said too, there's so much happening there, and it's just been really cool to kind of be a very small piece and just seeing it, watching it from afar. Like I'm not a musician, I can't play an instrument, but I do appreciate, how great and how talented a lot of the people in that area are, and do appreciate, like you were saying before, it's not just one sound, like they're not just a bunch of Bruce wannabes. They're creating their own unique sound, and this period of time in Asbury Park is its own thing. That was its own thing, and I'm sure down the road we're going to see even more great stuff coming out of that area.
And you can check all of this out coming up this week on greetingsfromtheGardenState.com. Mike Ham, thanks for your time this week. Looking forward to this week's show.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.